continuing my survey of interactive Director 11 behaviors, we get to another very indispensable group, and that is the animation behaviors. These are divided into three categories: automatic, interactive, and sprite transitions. Let me start with the interactive behaviors. These contain several behaviors that I think are truly indispensable. First one is one that I covered previously, and that is the rollover cursor change. That will allow you to add a browser type cursor change to any interactive element in Director. In this case, it adds a hand icon, cueing to anybody that this is now a button in interactive. Another very common behavior is the rollover member change. I think I have one right here, rollover member change. I've added to my photos label. What this does is allows you to swap out one cast member with another one. In this case, notice that when I roll over photos in web, I get a slightly different cast member for that button, one that has a border and is colored slightly lighter yellow there. Usually what you do is you create these cast members ahead of time. So if I open up my cast member window, you'll see that I have a series of buttons here with borders. It's probably best to place these next to each other. Makes it easier to find when you add the rollover member change behavior. But you'll see if I double click on this and I go to the paint window, there's one of the photos buttons, and I have others. Not quite sure where those are located here in this student project, but ideally you want to put those together. There we go. There are the other type of buttons without the borders. So you'll notice that when you apply these behaviors, let's go back to the code library and drag and drop a rollover member change on my main menu. I get a dialog here that says, which cast member would you like to display when I'm rolled over that particular sprite? And you get a list there of cast members. You can see this is why it's probably best to keep those cast members together so you can find it easily. For example, now it's going to swap out the monkey cast member when I roll over that main menu. Not very effective, but you get the general idea. Another of my favorite behaviors is the avoid mouse. Probably easier to demonstrate this one than describe it. Notice that it has parameters here for the distance. What's going to happen here is that the sprite will avoid my mouse and keep a distance of 53 pixels. Let's bring that up to about 75 or so. Speed will be 1000 pixels per second. And notice now when I play this movie back, this main menu button will avoid my mouse. It's kind of a nice trick, perhaps for a game, but it's keeping away from my mouse. Also, you have avoid sprite. Let's go ahead and undo that behavior. Again, you can click on the sprite, click on the behavior icon there to open up Property Inspector. Let's remove the avoid mouse behavior, and now let's open up the code library and drag an avoid sprite behavior on that button. Here again I have avoid channel. This is going to avoid a sprite in a specified channel. Keep a distance and speed setting, active at start, limited to stage area. This will be a little bit unpredictable in that it avoids the sprite in channel 3. It's probably about me, that one there. Let's go ahead and remove the avoid sprite behavior. And another one that I like to use is the open up the code library. The sprite track mouse is interesting. Let's go ahead and for this one create a new sprite here in one of the lower channels below here. Let's go ahead, go down here to channel 34, and let's add this sprite and stretch it out. Good ways down the score. And now let's drag and drop a sprite track mouse behavior to that sprite. The parameters here are center sprite on cursor, limited to stage area. Let's go ahead and accept the default. And now this time, the sprite tracks where I'm moving my mouse cursor. Again, very nice for games and other kinds of interactive needs that you have in Director. But what's nice is notice how easy it is to implement and use, and gives you a lot of creative ideas for integrating interactive elements into your Director projects. Yet another very useful behavior here in the animation interactive category is the constrain to line. That's an excellent behavior to use if you want to set up a volume slider or a scrub interface where that sprite will constrain itself to another sprite if that sprite is a line. Remember, we also have here in the animation category the automatic category where you have something called color cycling. I can drag that onto that sprite there. Here I have quite a number of parameters to set: color mode, palette, or RGB, color cycles, color period, green, blue. You can see that what's going to happen here is, let's go ahead and actually I need to take off that. Well, there you go. You can see that that's transitioning the colors, cycling the colors for that graphic there. We go ahead and go back and remove that sprite that's tracking my mouse, and let's do that again. You can see that if I wait for that to cycle through, and now here it's changing colors. I think at some point I lowered the opacity on that sprite, but it's color cycling, so it's giving me an automatic animation for that picture. Let me now move on to the next movie and demonstrate some additional behaviors, as well as give you some more tips for working with behaviors in Director 11.